Let the show begin. It's Bepler! Careful, wouldn't want to get blinded by that overcast sky. Actually, this is in the wrong spot. Wait. Actually, here's better. Wait, it's clothing. It should go in the middle. Perfect! That's where my camera equipment lives, but it's currently in use. You know, I love physical objects, especially ones made of wood and metal. My favorite kind. I'm not the biggest fan of plastics, quite frankly. Do you ever find yourself just wanting to make something? I'm feeling like putting something together with my hands. You ever just want to make something with these? You ever see those mileposts that point off in thousands of miles to different directions across the planet? Like this, and this? I feel like they're all missing a little something. Just a little pizzazz that's gone absent. I think I'd quite like to build myself a navigation sign that instead of pointing across the surface, points through it. Huh? That could be kind of cool. See exactly how many miles it would be if you shone a laser beam that could somehow penetrate rock through the earth to Perth. I couldn't point to Japan. I'm clueless on Madagascar. I can't feel it or see it or taste it. It's just out there, nebulous, amorphous. What is it? You can't hold it. So I want to make something you can hold. When you're on a sphere and you're sitting up at the top of it, I mean, all the stuff going on this side, it's like, I don't know. I can't relate. I can't even comprehend. I think it would be interesting to see. What could I call it? You already know because you can see the title of the video. I don't know what it's going to be called yet. I haven't even made the thing yet. It's already in the thumbnail and I haven't even made it. This thing I'm imagining, I don't know, it comes down from the ceiling maybe 1.5 feet. So I've hand selected 39 points around the world, some cities, some countries, some just big rocks. And I think it's time that I take those points of interest and point to them interestingly. It uses these arrows, but they're just not, they're not it yet. They're almost it. They're all built. Let me show you what I've been working on. Hey, you get to see what I see. Look at my shotgun mic. I made 39 arrows. I made that one. I made that one. I made all of them. I made every single one. And that's how I know where to stand. All the arrows are going to be either pointing sideways or some variation of sideways and down. I mean, none can point up because there's nothing to point to. Almost missed my mark. Sure, you and I live on the same planet, but do you know where? I mean, generally speaking, I've got no clue. I know New York is that way. I know Japan is that way, but how far down is it? You know, if you could look through the shell of the Earth and look down and see the outlines of all the countries, islands, and oceans around you, well, what would that look like? I mean, what would it say if I could definitely say Japan is right there? I don't know. I just don't know. I'd like to know. So what I'm thinking, I'm going to take the sphere of the Earth and calculate where all the points line up to if I were to travel through it in a straight line as the crow flies, but more like as the neutrino flies. What goes through matter? I think I'm going to put the distances down in miles. I like miles. I use miles. I've memorized the number 5,280, doggone it, and I'm not switching now. Metric makes more sense. But my street signs say miles, so I'm writing it in miles, doggone it. If you don't like it, you can just unsubscribe. Should I even write mile on there? What do you think? Is it a good call to write mile on every single one? Miles? There's none that are going to be mile away. Luckily, when I started fixing up this place, I made a 3D model of the interior of this big main room, and I could use that 3D model, depending on where I decide to place this thing, to extend points outward on a 3D model of the Earth and see where exactly I need to have all these arrows pointing to. Time to gather everybody up. I get the very sneaky suspicion they are definitely not all going to fit. Yeah. Get in there. There is one arrow in here that I actually think I'm gonna scrap and remake, number 39. I don't like the way it turned out. I love all the rest. It's just that this one is the only different one where I tried to use a pyramid, and it doesn't look good. It could look good if I had a perfect little pyramid and a smaller base, but you know what? All the rest of them, I did flat style, so I think I'm just gonna make one more flat style. He's done so. Come on. Nice and easy. Hey, when you build 39 arrows, you invite chaos into your life. 39 of anything is quite a few. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it's several. Perhaps even more than several. What's more than several? Many. There's a lot in there. We've got all kinds of arrows here. Arrows out the wazoo. Arrows of all sorts of joinery methods. Arrows like you wouldn't believe. We've got hinge-mounted arrows, 2 hinges. We've got notch-cut arrows that split down the middle and then needed to be drilled back together. If you ever find yourself needing to make an arrow, I'll show you how. As I so often find, it is once again time to build something. We're scrapping this, and I'm gonna need some wood to create the next one, so... Wow! So I keep all my big stuff down below, and then up top we've got itty-bitty small and medium. There's my metal, and there's my fancy wood. Definitely not taking anything from down there. I am probably only gonna need bitty and small. Alrighty! Let's see what we can't make happen. Actually, no, it's kind of crooked. Look. Here, you'd even get to see. I may just use that. Maybe. I don't want to do anything fancy with this one. Possibly. Not a lot of talent in here. This could be good. I'm gonna go with this one. Just keep it simple. Why get complicated with it? There. Perfect on the first try. And then, as far as length goes, there. Whoops. That looks great! Time to slice. And just take that little end out. Boom. Alright, I'm going to use this orientation, and I was thinking, when I made the last one with a hinge, if I just put it sideways, it'll just act as 2 brackets, and that'll be good to freaking go, so I'm going to make that happen. Now you may be asking yourself, why wouldn't I just use a bracket? Why use a hinge? Well, I'm out of brackets. So here we go. Well, actually, no. I want to see the cool attachments when this thing is finally done. So I'm going to put it on the good side. You know, that should be good. When you get to see some exposed brass. It's not every day that you get to look at some exposed brass. Make sure all the Phillips heads are oriented 90 degrees. I'll tell you who was there for me. It was Philip. My boy. Don't they all just look like they want to become something? Together. Time to start the Thru-Way-Finder. You know, if you personally ever find yourself working on a project like this where you need to have multiple points that are pointing through a planet, you might want to plan it. Well, guess who's made a grave misstep? This guy. Now, I'm thinking I'm gonna put it right there. Right by my desk, right by the hallway. I can see it as I walk by, just above, so I don't smack my head on it anytime I walk by. I really should have thought about which orientation the arrows are going to be sitting in when they're attached to this thing, because I've already made 5. Well, I've made 9, but 5 of those 9 are ones that are pointing the wrong way. They're gonna end up, so like New York City would end up pointing like this, and you know, you can't read it without getting behind it, and that's not cool. That's actually pretty lame, if I'm being honest. I want to be able to read all of these signs from out here, you know? Or at the very least from sitting at my desk. I am glad that I at least realized this after only burning 9, because there are only 14 that actually need to point left. I mean, there's 9 that need to point down. So yeah, check your work, orient 3D positions twice and burn once. It has been 4 long days. My arrows are finally done! I'm so happy with how they turned out. Look at this! They're amazing! So I've been spending my time burning wood. I've probably sunk about 20 hours into continuously holding a very hot piece of metal over some very dead trees. I'm going to build what I'm now calling the Thru-Way-Finder. I'm going to attach them to this. This part of a tree around which I used to play as a young Bepler is going to be the Thru-Way-Finder. I think it's the right size based on how many arrows I've got. I'm going to do my very best not to snap the greenery. How old is this tree? 1, 2, 3, 60, 61, 62, 63, bark. I guess it's 63 years old, this tree. Okay, so my lifespan is only represented by the outer inch. I think on the end that points towards the floor, I'm gonna chop into it some 45-degree cuts to make it sort of like a fence post upside down. And I think I'm gonna cut that right now. I think it is high time that I get cracking on that crossbar. There needs to be some way to attach it to the building, and the only way that I can do is to attach something else and then attach it to that. So here we go. I've got one more thing to burn, so chop off 8 inches, make room for the log in the middle. Thru-Way-Finder, distance in miles. A good design for a saw case would be one where you get the case out, you press a button, the saw flies in the air and it lands in your hand. Measure twice, cut once, people. I unfortunately now find myself smack dab at the epicenter of a right kerfuffle. I was at the point where I needed to get my approximate alignment set straight. And then I noticed something. Something sinister. New York City was appearing to be pointed north of me. But it is south of me. So I was beginning to wonder if I'd made some sort of grave mistake along the way. Perhaps I'd completely miscalculated all these points, and I was going to have to redo them and rebend all these wires that were only approximately pointing to somewhere which was wrong in the end. Started thinking maybe I'd done a right goof. I became frantic. That's when the investigation began. I started going down the laundry list, seeing if maybe somewhere I'd made some sort of obvious mistake. I reprojected the points, and again, New York, north of me. Yeah, at a certain point, it's just, you gotta get on Google Earth and just look. I faced the rude awakening. To my shock and awe, east is a lie. West too. Nobody ever told me. Lines of latitude that are not the equator are curved lines. That's when I learned about geodesics. It's very counterintuitive. I encourage you to go onto Google Earth and just look for yourself. Just extend a line going out east or west and watch it curve towards the equator. As it happens, Blender was right and I was wrong. If you want to get to New York, even though it's south of you, you have to start by going north of it and you will curve back on the way there. You have to overshoot it northwise in order to end up somewhere that is actually south of you. I'm glad that I discovered this in this specific way, thinking at first that something was terribly wrong and then realizing not only was nothing wrong, but my mind was blown. These are geodesics, baby! Look at that, now you're learning something with me. It's done. It took so stinking long, but it's finally done. Look at this thing. Look at this thing! What is this? You know, I always knew it was going to be cool, but I didn't know it was going to be this close to what I imagined. Hopefully it doesn't fall onto me when I'm working. Oh no, it's only like 40 pounds. It's quite light. I thought all the wire would add up, but I guess it didn't. Should be good. And it's not even on the same joist as my climbing wall, so he's got his own strength. It's not too heavy. It should be good. It should be good. It's gonna be fine. I think it's about right time that we put this on the ceiling. I'm going to be very careful. Hey, you get to meet a new tool. Introducing Bepler's tools. Last summer I made myself a utility cart over the course of 4 months, working on it for like 2 weeks and then not at all for 3 months and then again for a week. I spent a lot of time designing it before I even ever bought the materials. I used Blender to make sure everything would fit together nicely. And it does. And it has an incredible feature. Introducing the utility cart. Okay. Easy does it. Alright. It's so dirty. It's covered in all sorts of crap. Let me get the weights. Okay. The weights are in. Let me show you the secret. This thing weighs about 300 pounds. Look at these. You need a little bit of extra height. I got you covered. The third step. Lock it in place. You're good to go. The third step, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so proud of this. The trick is to store your weights right over here. You can really use this to work on something. Easy does it, easy does it. This tool is going to prove to be integral for attaching this giant thing to my ceiling. Unfortunately, during the installation, a little bit of haphazardry on my part ended up in 2 arrows being snapped down the centers, so I've put some glue on those and they should be dry within a day. The final arrows are gluing up now. I ended up breaking a 3rd one. Look at this thing. Look at this insane object. This just doesn't even compute. Okay, step number next. I need to go into my Blender file and calculate each of the individual exact locations to which each arrow needs to be pointing, and then point them that way. So when I first attached them all with wires, I just used approximate alignments. They're all within about 10 degrees of where they need to exactly be pointing. The strategy that I'm going to employ for doing these alignments, I think it's fairly simple. I'm just going to stick a little piece of tape on the floor or the wall that it needs to be pointing directly to, get out a laser pointer, align it along the length axis of the arrows, and make sure that it's shining within 1 degree or so of exactly where it needs to be. And then the Thru-Way-Finder is complete! It's like 95%, and it's so cool! I knew it was going to be awesome. I didn't know it was going to be this awesome. I suspect, similar to pretty much every aspect of this project, the alignment is going to take about 3 times longer than I thought it would when I first set out on it, so 3 days. I'll see you in 3 days. The Thru-Way-Finder is complete! The Thru-Way-Finder. Start to finish, it's taken me 18 days to get this thing fully assembled, aligned, and on my ceiling. Quite a project. Forget a conversation piece, this is a whole thesis piece. This whole thing was not built in a day, but I did wood burn Rome in a day. As I've had this on my ceiling for the last 3 days, I've been starting to memorize, like, where places are, and so now I can just, without even looking, be like, yeah, Tokyo is right there. Oh, New York City? It's right there. A month ago, I would have told you New York City is that way. It's actually that way. The South Pole of our planet, that way. Mount Everest, that way. The Mariana Trench, the Titanic, it's right there. So if you ever want to make yourself a Thru-Way-Finder, now you know exactly how to do it. I mean, well, not exactly. There's a lot of troubleshooting that happened off camera, but for the most part, you can probably figure it out from this video. There was a lot of problem solving. There was a lot of frustration. There was a little bit of backpedaling, but phooey. Doesn't matter. I didn't plan the sunset sunrise thing. That was just a last minute thing that made sense. It really ties together that base plate. If I had to do this project again from scratch, I think the only thing I would do different is the wire work. I think it could look about 30% more fantastic with extremely careful planning. But hey, then it would never be done. It's already taken me 3 weeks to do all this. Something I am particularly proud of that I didn't highlight yet is that when I was picking all my points of interest, I ended up picking for one of them, Polaris, the North Star, for one of my points. It's the only star in the night sky that stays in the same place as the Earth spins. And so it's the only point above the horizon that you could point to that's not some sort of local mountaintop. As it turns out, the parallax that the Earth gets as it goes around the sun is not quite enough to accurately depict the distance away that Polaris is, so I just picked the average point between the two best guesses. Yeah, the North Star is 2 quadrillion miles away. 2 quadrillion is a lot of digits. It was the hardest thing to wood burn out of the entire lot. Now you'll notice there's one arrow on this whole project that's made out of Purple Heart, and that's Lyon, France. Why? Well, because that's where Henke lives. I appreciate you stopping back by at my channel. I hope it was worth it. Boy, look at this scrub bar down here. It's been almost 26 minutes. Bepler out. Here, now check out the reason that I've been limping the entire video. Oh. Ow. Shit. That didn't feel good. It's not good. It doesn't look good for Lefty. Well, alright then, that's the end of that.